Hello, this is Tony Gaddis, author of Starting Out with Java. In this video, we're going to talk about one of the programming problems at the end of Chapter 2. It's problem number 9, the miles per gallon problem. And we're also going to step through the process of writing a program to solve this problem. Well, the problem gives us the formula for calculating a car's miles per gallon. And here's the formula: MPG, or miles per gallon, equals miles driven divided by gallons of gas used. And the problem tells us to write a program that asks the user for the number of miles driven, and we also want to ask the user for the gallons of gas used. So the user is going to enter two pieces of data: number of miles driven and the gallons of gas used. And then the program is to calculate the car's miles per gallon and display the result on the screen. Well, let's start out by making a list of the steps that the program will take in the order that they should be taken. And then once we've done that, we can actually start writing code. So the first thing the program should do is ask the user for the number of miles driven. So let's just say get miles from the user. And next we're going to get the gallons of gas used. So let's say get gallons from user. And now that we've got those two pieces of data, those are the only two pieces of data that we need to perform the calculation: miles driven and gallons of gas used. So let's perform the calculation. MPG equal miles divided by gallons. So there we've calculated the miles per gallon, and the last thing that's left to do is to display the result on the screen. So let's just say display MPG. Of course, we want to display a message that tells the user what that number means, the MPG. But this is the overall algorithm that the program should perform. We're not quite ready to start writing code, however. We need to look at this algorithm and try to determine the variables that we will need in the program. So let's just look at each step. The first step is to get miles from the user. Now this is an input operation. The program is going to read a piece of data from the keyboard, and that's the number of miles driven. So we need a variable to hold that value. We want to store that in memory because we're going to use it later in our calculation. That's one variable that we will need. In the next step, we're going to get the number of gallons from the user, another input operation, so we need a variable to hold that piece of data. The next step is to perform a calculation: MPG equal miles divided by gallons. Now this math expression involves the two variables that we know that we're going to need, miles and gallons, and it's going to give us a result. So what are we going to do with that result? Well, we're going to store the result in another variable, MPG. And then the last step is to display MPG. We don't need any extra variables for that because we're using one that we know we need already. So it looks like we need three variables. We need a variable to hold the miles, we need a variable to hold the gallons, and we need a variable to hold the miles per gallon. And I think that these names are sufficient for those variables as well. Well, what about the data types of these variables? Well, I'm thinking that all three of these variables should be doubles, and here's why I'm thinking that. The number of miles that were driven, that could potentially be a fractional number. It's possible that the user has driven 122.5 miles. The gallons could potentially be a fractional number because it's possible that we didn't use a whole number of gallons. The MPG variable should be a double because it's going to hold the result of a division, so chances are that value will be fractional as well. So I think that all three of these variables should be doubles. Well, now we're ready to start writing code. I've started my editor here. And this program is going to read keyboard input, and you've got a couple of options. As you've read in Chapter 2, we know of two ways to read input from the keyboard. We can use the scanner class, which reads keyboard input using a console window, or we can use J option pane, which displays a dialog box. The scanner class is a little simpler in its usage, so I'm going to use that in this program. In any program that uses the scanner class, we need an import statement. Import java.util.scanner, and keep in mind that the S in scanner is uppercase. Now we can start the public class declaration. This program, I've named the file milespergallon.java, so the public class that's in this file needs to be named milespergallon. Public class milespergallon. And I'll go ahead, put the closing brace, and then inside this class we need a public static void main method, because that's the starting point for the program. Public static void main, and we'll just go ahead and put the braces for that. Okay, so here inside the main method, let's declare the three variables that we're going to need: miles, gallons, and MPG. There's the miles variable, and I'm going to put some comments out here just to document the purpose of these variables. Gallons, MPG, okay. Now I'm going to create a scanner object to read keyboard input. So remember that when you use the scanner class, it's not enough just to import, just to have this import statement in your program. You have to actually create a scanner object in your program, and then you use that scanner object to read input. So let's put a comment here. Create a scanner object for keyboard input, and I typically name my scanner object, if I'm going to use a scanner object for keyboard input, I typically name the variable that's going to reference that object, I name it keyboard. It just sort of makes sense. Scanner keyboard equal new scanner system.in. Now let's just have a review of what this statement does. This part of the statement declares a variable named keyboard, and that variable is a scanner reference variable. It means that we can use this variable to reference a scanner object in memory. And then this part of the statement, the part over here on the right side of the equal sign, this uses the new statement, which actually creates an object in memory. We're creating a new scanner object, and then inside the parentheses we're listing system.in. System.in is where this scanner object will get the input that it's going to read. System.in refers to the keyboard. Okay, now we're going to prompt the user to enter the number of miles driven. So let's put a comment. Prompt the user to enter miles driven. And first we will have a system.out.print statement that simply tells the user what to enter. And then we can actually have a statement that reads a double from our scanner object, and we're going to store that in the miles variable. So we say miles equal keyboard dot next double. Okay, we're going to do the same thing to get the get number of gallons used. So prompt the user to enter the gallons used. And we will store that value in the gallons variable. So gallons equal keyboard dot next double. Now we're ready to perform the calculation. So let's put a comment, calculate miles per gallon. We're going to store the miles per gallon in the MPG variable. So we say MPG equal miles divided by gallons. And then the last step is to display the miles per gallon. Well, let's put a comment. This time I'll use system.out.println. The MPG is, then we use a plus sign, MPG. Okay, well, I think we can try the program out. First, I'll compile the program. And the compiler tells me that I have one error. Well, that's not unusual. It should comfort you to know that even your instructor has errors in programs from time to time. And here's the error. I don't know if you caught that when I wrote this statement. I left the T out of print line. So let me go back and fix that. System.out.println. Well, maybe that will fix the program. This time it compiles successfully. Well, let's run the program. Okay, enter the miles driven. Well, let's say that I drove 200 miles, and the gallons used, let's say I used 10 gallons, and the MPG is 20. Okay,